I died choking on my own blood, the metallic tang flooding my mouth as Uncle Harlan's boot crushed my windpipe against the cold concrete floor of the warehouse. "Family first, savvy," he'd whispered, his face twisting into that fake Southern charm smile right before the darkness swallowed me whole. And then, like a glitch in the universe's shitty code, I woke up gasping in my old bedroom, the alarm clock blinking 7 a.m. on the day of Dad's retirement party, 5 years before he'd ever trust Harlan with the keys to the kingdom. My heart hammered like a jackrabbit on meth as I bolted upright in the queen-sized bed that used to be mine, the one with the faded Astros comforter I'd begged for at 16. The mirror across the room showed my face. 32, not 37, no laugh lines etched from years of grinding through board meetings, no faint scar on my chin from that bar fight in Austin I'd walked away from like a boss. Savannah Savvy Harlan. No, wait, that was his name I was borrowing like a curse. I was Savannah Reeves, daughter of the man who'd built Reeves Energy from a dusty oil rig in West Texas to a mid-sized empire pumping black gold across the Permian Basin. And today, at 55, Dad was handing over the reins. To me. Not to that snake in khakis who'd slither back into our lives like he owned the deed. I stumbled to the bathroom, splashing water on my face, staring at the sink as fragments of my future life replayed like a bad acid trip. Harlan's betrayal hadn't been quick, it had been a slow poison. After Dad's party, he'd cozied up, whispering about expanding the legacy, while siphoning funds into offshore accounts. I'd caught wind of it 2 years in. Late nights poring over ledgers in the home office, coffee going cold as I traced the paper trail. But by then, he'd turned the board against me, painting me as the reckless daughter chasing green energy pipe dreams instead of sticking to crude. "She's got her head in the clouds, Tom," he'd say to Dad, clapping him on the back like they were blood thicker than the oil in our veins. And Dad, God love him, believed it. Believed Harlan when he said I was embezzling to fund some affair. Hell, I hadn't even dated since that prick from law school ghosted me. The night I confronted him in the warehouse, keys in hand to seize the evidence, he'd been waiting. A single swing from a tire iron, and I was down, ribs cracking like dry twigs. "You should have stayed in your lane, niece," he'd growled, his breath reeking of bourbon and lies. Then the boot, the choke, the end. No headlines, no investigation, just a tragic accident, on the books, my body dumped in the arroyo like yesterday's trash. Harlan took the company, married his trophy wife with my inheritance money, and toasted to family unity at my memorial. But now I was back, trung sin, as my Vietnamese grandma would have called it if she hadn't passed before the shit hit. Reborn, reloaded, and ready to burn it all down. I gripped the sink, knuckles white, a feral grin splitting my face. "Not this time, you son of a bitch," I muttered to my reflection. This time I played dirty. The drive to the ranch house in my beat-up Ford F-150 felt like slipping into a fever dream. Lubbock sprawled out under that endless Texas sky, flat as a pancake and twice as unforgiving. Billboards hawked Jesus, guns, and Whataburger like it was gospel. I cranked the AC, windows down, letting the hot wind whip my hair as Merle Haggard wailed about mamas and prison bars on the radio. 5 years ago, I'd been excited for this party. Daddy's big send-off, ribs smoking on the pit, the whole Reeves clan descending like locusts on the barbecue spread. Now, every mile marker was a countdown to the moment Harlan would show up, all drawl and backslaps, planting the seeds of our ruin. I pulled up the gravel drive just as Mama bustled out the screen door, her apron dusted with flour from the cornbread she'd been fussing over. "Savvy girl, you're early. Help me with the potato salad." She pulled me into a hug that smelled like vanilla and home, and for a split second, I almost broke. This was the woman who'd bury me in 5 years, her eyes hollow at the funeral, whispering prayers over a closed casket because Harlan had advised against an autopsy. "Too messy for the family image," he'd said. But I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing a laugh. "You bet, Mama. Wouldn't miss Dad's glory day." Inside, the kitchen was chaos. Cousins chopping onions, Dad in his best button-down, practicing his speech in front of the fridge magnets. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, spotting me. "The future of Reeves Energy." I clapped, heart twisting. Thomas Reeves, broad-shouldered, silver-templed, the kind of man who shook hands like he meant it and loved his Bible verses as much as his balance sheets. He'd built this from nothing after Mama's daddy cut him off for marrying that Yankee girl from Ohio. And Harlan? My uncle by marriage. Technically, Dad's brother-in-law from Mama's side. The black sheep who'd washed up in Lubbock 20 years back with a law degree and a grudge. Family helps family, he'd croon, but it was all a con. In my first life, I'd ignored the red flags, the late-night calls, the investments that vanished like smoke. The party kicked off at noon under the big oak in the backyard, string lights twinkling premature against the blue sky. Tables groaned with brisket, coleslaw, and Shiner Box sweating in buckets of ice. Kinfolk from Dallas to Amarillo swapped stories, kids chasing fireflies early. I nursed a sweet tea, eyes scanning for him. And there he was, rolling up in his gleaming Cadillac like he owned the damn county. Aunt Lila on his arm in pearls that screamed new money. Tommy, Harlan bellowed, enveloping Dad in a bear hug that reeked of Old Spice and opportunism. He was 58 then, still trim from those country club rounds, salt and pepper hair slicked back, eyes sharp as a hawk's. Big day, brother-in-law. Reeves Energy's king. Hell, you're the king. He turned to me, that smile flashing like a used car salesman's. And looky here, savvy. All grown up and ready to take the throne. Huh. I forced a grin, clinking my glass against his bourbon. Uncle H, wouldn't be a party without you. Inside, Bal rose. This was the man who'd choked the life out of me, who'd forged my signature on falsified docs to tank the stock. But today he was just the boastful uncle, launching into his spiel about disrupting the game with some wild fracking tech he'd invented. The crowd ate it up, oohs and ahs as he waved blueprints, promising billions. Dad beamed, clapping him on the back. That's why I want you on the advisory board, Harlan. Savvy here's the CEO, but we need that fire. Advisory board. The Trojan horse. In my old timeline, that's how he'd wormed in, advising, until he was calling shots. I watched him now, that gleam in his eye as he cornered Dad by the smoker, murmuring low about opportunities while Lila flirted with the cousins. My blood boiled, but I played cool, circulating like the good daughter, refilling plates, laughing at Uncle Roy's dumb jokes about oil prices. As the sun dipped, speeches fired off. Dad's was gold. Humble, heartfelt, crediting Mama and me for keeping him grounded. Savannah's got the smarts and the grit, he said, voice cracking. This company's hers now. Build it bigger, baby girl. Cheers erupted, and I stood tall, toasting back. But then Harlan took the mic, uninvited, his drawl turning the air thick. Thomas, you're a legend. But let's talk real. Energy's changing. Electric cars? Windmills? Nah. We need bold. I gotta play. Proprietary fracking fluid, cuts costs by 30%, boosts yield double. Partner with me, and Reeves goes global. The yard hushed, then exploded in applause. Dad's eyes lit like Christmas. Harlan, you dog. Why didn't you say sooner? I stepped forward, pulse thundering. This was it, the hook. In 5 years, that fluid would be exposed as toxic sludge, poisoning aquifers and landing lawsuits that bled us dry. Harlan's scam, buried under patents he'd steal from a whistleblower he'd silence. Me. Uncle. I cut in, voice steady as steel, sounds ambitious. But we gotta vet it. EPA regs, environmental impact. Murmurs rippled. Harlan's smile tightened, just a flicker. Savvy, always the cautious one. That's why we need dreamers like me. The toast went up, glasses clinking, but I saw it. The first crack in his facade. As night fell, fireflies dancing, I slipped away to the barn, pulling out my phone. Time to arm up. First call, an old contact from law school, now at the SEC. Hey Jake, it's Savvy Reeves. Got a tip on fracking fraud. Hypothetical for now. His laugh was wary, but he bit. Seed planted. Back at the party, Harlan cornered me by the cooler, breath hot. You questioning me already, niece? After Tommy's faith. His eyes bored in, that false warmth cracking. I met his gaze, unflinching. Just business, uncle. Family first, right? He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. As he walked away, I whispered to the stars, game on. The weeks blurred into a high-stakes poker game, me bluffing with a royal flush while Harlan held a pair of deuces he thought were aces. Back in the CEO's chair at Reeves Energy HQ, a squat glass tower off I-20 in Midland, I dove headfirst into the ledgers, cross-referencing every invoice from the past year. No offshore ghosts yet. That came later in my timeline. But I knew the signs, the inflated vendor contracts, the consulting fees to shell companies with Harlan's fingerprints all over them. By day 3, I'd flagged 3 anomalies, enough to call a quiet board meeting without tipping my hand. Dad, semi-retired but still puttering in his office like a kid in a candy store, raised an eyebrow when I laid it out. Harlan's play sounds solid, Savvy. You sure you're not overthinking? His disappointment stung like a slap. Echoes of the old me, begging for his trust as it slipped away. But this time, I had proof sketches, not full decks. Dad, it's not doubt. It's due diligence. Let me run point on the vetting. He nodded, reluctant, but pride flickered. All right, kiddo. You're the boss. Calling Jake at the SEC escalated things. He looped in a forensic accountant buddy, off books. This hypothetical's got legs, save, Jake texted one night, after I'd wired him a research grant from petty cash. Photos of Harlan's lab, a rented storage unit in Odessa, popped up. Barrels of unmarked chemicals, no permits. The fracking fluid? Straight bootleg, laced with unregulated solvents that had turned groundwater to poison. Harlan sensed the heat, though. Invites to family dinners at his McMansion in Horseshoe Bay ramped up, Lila cooing over my glow while he poured scotch like we were pals. One night, over ribeyes grilled to perfection, he leaned in, voice low. Heard you're digging into my proposal, Savvy. Tommy's worried you're stalling progress. His eyes were vipers, probing. I sipped my wine, legs crossed under the linen tablecloth, channeling every femme fatale I'd binge-watched on Netflix. Progress without risk? That's a fairy tale, uncle. But hey, if your fluid's gold, it'll shine. He laughed, too loud, but I caught the tick in his jaw. Later, as Lila cleared plates, he pulled me aside in the study. Darkwood panels, shelves of law tomes he'd never cracked. Look, darlin', I know you think I'm the outsider. But blood's blood. Your daddy's dream? I can make it explode. Just trust the process. Trust. The word hung like smoke. In my death throes, it had been his last lie. I stepped closer, close enough to smell his cologne, dropping my voice to a husky whisper. I trust winners, Harlan. Prove it. His pupils dilated. Gotcha. Controversial move number 1. Flirt the line, make him think I was swayable. A brush of fingers on his arm, a lingering glance. Nothing overt, but enough to muddy his read. By morning, he'd emailed proprietary specs, attachments ripe for Jake's hackers to dissect. The real bomb dropped a month in, at the quarterly board huddle. Suits from Houston, all paunch and power ties, droned on yields while I presented the review. Slides clicked, cost projections skewed, environmental red flags waving like matadors. This tech's untested, I said, laser pointer steady. And the funding trail? Loops back to unverified sources. Gasps rippled. Harlan, at the end of the table, flushed beet red under his tan. Savannah, this is slander. Those are preliminary. Dad? I overrode, turning to Thomas at the head. We pull the plug. Now. The room froze. Harlan's fists clenched. One boarder, old Mr. Caldwell, grumbled about youthful overreach. Dad's face was thunderclouds, but he banged the gavel. Motion carries. Harlan, we'll revisit in 90 days, with full audits. He stormed out, tires squealing on the asphalt lot. Victory tasted like ash. That night, alone in my apartment, still the cramped one-bedroom overlooking the dust bowls, I cracked a Lone Star and scrolled Jake's latest. Wire transfers to a Cayman account, signed HR Harlan Reeves. Wait, Reeves. He'd hyphenated after marrying Lila, but this? Forged Dad's sig on a power of attorney, buried in probate files from Auntie's will. The secret clawed up. Mama's sister, Lila's mom, hadn't just left Harlan the scraps. She'd confessed in a sealed letter, stashed in her safety deposit box, that Harlan had pushed her down the stairs 10 years back, over gambling debts he'd hidden. He'll destroy your family, Tom, she'd written to Dad. But Harlan found it first, burned it, and twisted the narrative. Accidental fall, grief-stricken widower. I died for uncovering that ember. Now, armed with it, I drove to the bank in Abilene at dawn, flashing my CEO credentials for a deep dive. The box yielded nothing. Cleaned out. But the clerk remembered. Harlan, 2 weeks after the funeral, crying buckets. Bingo. Controversial decision 2. Blackmail light. I drafted an email, anonymous, routing through VPNs Jake swore by. We know about Evelyn. Walk away from Reeves, or the Lubbock PD gets the autopsy discrepancies. Sent at 3 a.m., bourbon buzzing my veins. His reply hit at 7. Who is this? Lies. But the panic was palpable. By noon, he called Dad, voice oil slick. Family meeting, Tommy. Urgent. We convened at the ranch. Mama's cornbread steaming, tension thicker than gravy. Harlan arrived haggard, eyes bloodshot. Someone's smearing me. He spat, slamming printouts. My slides, doctored to look damning. And now threats? About Evie? That's ancient, twisted history. Dad's face paled. Evie? What the hell, Harlan? Mama gasped, hand to her throat. I sat silent, playing innocent, but inside, fireworks. Harlan spun it masterfully. Grief made me sloppy. Those transfers were loans, repaid. But savvy. She's gunning for me. Power grab. The lie landed like a gut punch. Dad turned to me. I searching. Savvy? You leak this. My throat tightened. Deny, and lose him. Accuse, and fracture everything. Controversial 3, the half-truth. Dad, I flagged issues because I love this family. Harlan's fluid? It's dangerous. And the money? It doesn't add up. I slid the Cayman printout across. No names, just numbers. Harlan lunged, face purple. You bitch, fabricated. Chair scraped. Mama cried out. Dad stood, voice like gravel. Enough. Harlan, you're off the board. Effective now. Savvy, we audit everything. He left in a huff, vowing lawsuits. But as the dust settled, Dad pulled me aside on the porch, sunset bleeding red across the scrub. I owe you an apology, kid. Always knew you had the steel. His hug was fierce, and for the first time since waking, tears pricked. But Harlan? He wasn't done. That night, my phone buzzed, unknown number. You think you won? Watch your back roads, niece. The threats escalated. Slash tires on the F-150, anonymous tips to the board painting me as unstable. Jake warned. He's got reach. Old mob ties from his Dallas days. Cunning bastard. I hired private security, a grizzled ex-Marine named Ruiz, but slept with a Glock under my pillow. Revenge simmered, but so did doubt. Was dragging this out worth the collateral? Mama's worry lines deepening, Dad's health dipping from stress. Climax brewed at the annual Oilman's Gala in Houston. Black ties, caviar dreams, the elite schmoozing under chandeliers like vultures in tuxes. Harlan crashed it, uninvited, cornering me by the bar with a vodka neat. Clever girl, he hissed, close enough for spittle. But you forget, I built this game before you crawled. His hand clamped my wrist, bruising. Evelyn slipped. Accidents happen. Rage ignited. I twisted free, voice ice. Like mine will. Try it. I've got your confessions recorded. Every late-night call to your Cayman fixer. Bluff, but his flinch sold it. The crowd blurred. Ruiz hovered. Harlan sneered. Family destroys family, savvy. Always has. He vanished into the throng, but the gauntlet was thrown. Back in Midland, Jake's team cracked his safe, digital, via phishing bait I'd planted. Jackpot. Evelyn's letter, scanned and stashed. The push, the cover-up, the threats to witnesses. And worse, a mole on our board, paid off to vote his way. Dawn broke as I printed it all, stacking pages like ammo. Time to end this. But as I drove to confront him at his ranch, radio crackling with a storm warning, lightning forked the sky. My old death flashed. Warehouse rain slick, boot descending. Heart pounding, I gripped the wheel. No turning back. The storm hit like God's own wrath. Sheets of rain lashing the windshield as I barreled down FM 1788 toward Harlan's spread, a 4-inch fortress with iron gates and floodlights that screamed insecurity. Mud sucked at the tires, wipers slapping frantic, but I pushed the F-150 harder, the stack of docks on the passenger seat fluttering like trapped birds. Ruiz had protested. Let the cops handle it, Ms. Reeves. But cops were Harlan's puppets in my first life. Donations to the sheriff's campaign, golf with the DA. This was personal. Trunks and mint, I carried the scars. Only I could cauterize them. His gate loomed, chained but ajar, invitation or trap. I killed the engine, thunder rumbling like laughter from above. Glock tucked in my waistband, papers under arm. I trudged the drive, boots squelching. The house glowed defiant, porch light haloing Harlan's silhouette, shotgun propped casual against the rail. Knew you'd come, savvy. He called over the gale, voice mocking thunder. Drama queen, just like your auntie. I stopped 10 feet out, rain plastering my jacket, hair wild. It's over, Harlan. The letter, the ledgers, the threats, it's all here. Sign the confession, or I walk it to the feds myself. I tossed the stack at his feet, pages scattering like confetti in the mud. He didn't flinch, just pumped the shotgun, click-clack echoing. Confession? For what, girl? Loving my family too much. His laugh was jagged, eyes manic in the downpour. Evelyn was weak, debts piling, me trying to save us. One argument, a shove. Self-defense. Lies, polished over years. He stepped closer, barrel loose but lethal. And you? Snooping like you own the truth. Tommy's soft, always was. Without me, he'd be pumping gas in Ohio. Rage boiled, but I held, channeling the dead woman's grit. Self-defense doesn't explain the cover-up, or poisoning aquifers for a quick buck, or killing me. The words slipped, past tense, a ghost in the storm. His eyes narrowed, shotgun rising. Killing you? What the hell? Twist hit like lightning. He didn't remember. No, the boot, the warehouse. But this was 5 years early. My death hadn't happened. Yet. Figure of speech. I backpedaled, but too late. His face twisted. Recognition? Paranoia? You're cracked, Savvy. Always knew. Power went to your head. He advanced, rain mixing with sweat on his brow. Controversial 4. The shot. I drew the Glock, steady two-handed, thunder masking the click. Back off, uncle. Last warning. We stood frozen, weapons crossed like Old West standoff, water pooling at our feet. Shoot me, he taunted. And you're the monster. Front page, CEO slays uncle in rage. True enough, Lubbock PD would spin it dirty. But then his phone buzzed on the porch, screen lighting, board vote, urgent. He glanced, smirked. Too late, darlin'. They called, emergency session. My mole flipped them. Reeves is mine by morning. Defeat clawed in. The audit? Sabotaged. Jake's feed silent. Jamming? I lowered the Glock a hair, mind racing. Ending him here? Tempting, but that made me him, betrayer in blood. No, the real revenge, exposure, total. You win the board, I said, voice steel, but not the truth. I backed toward the truck, eyes locked. Evelyn's letter? Dupes with the DA. Wire fraud. SEC's en route. And the fluid? EPA raid at dawn. Bluff layered on truth. Jake had pulled strings overnight. Harlan's smirk faltered, shotgun dipping. Bullshit. But doubt crept. As I fired up the engine, he lunged, barrel swinging wild. Mudslide, slip, the shot cracked, wild into the night. My Glock barked back, warning, grazing his shoulder. He howled, dropping, blood blooming dark on his shirt. I peeled out, hard apocalypse, dialing 911 anonymous. Shots fired at 1427 FM, 1788. Harlan Reeves, armed. Sirens would come, his empire, crumbling. Back in Midland, storm raging, I crashed through Dad's door, papers dripping, story spilling. He's dirty, Dad. All of it. Mama wept. Dad's face hardened, old wounds reopening. My brother-in-law. Goddamn. Dawn broke clear, headlines brewing. Harlan arrested, attempted murder, fraud, manslaughter cold case, cracked wide. The board flipped back, audits burying him deeper. But the twist? In his cell, ranting to lawyers, he spilled not just Evelyn, but Dad's secret. Thomas had known. Suspected the push, hushed it for family peace, buried the letter himself to protect Lila. Kept the peace. Dad confessed over coffee, voice broken. Thought it was one sin. Never dreamed he'd poison the well. Betrayal doubled. Dad's hand in the hush that enabled Harlan's rot. I stared at him, the man I'd died for, now frail in his robe. Forgiveness? A choice, controversial as hell. We rebuild clean, I said finally, gripping his hand. No more shadows. He nodded, tears carving tracks. Happy, not tidy, scars lingered, trust a rebuild. But alive, unbetrayed this time. Months on, Reeves pivoted green, solar rigs in the basin, me at the helm, Dad advising with humbled eyes. Harlan rotted in county, trial a circus. At his sentencing, our eyes met across the courtroom. His, defeated, mine, victorious. Family first, I mouthed. He looked away. Some nights, I wake gasping, boot phantom on my throat. But then I breathe, touch the scar-free skin, and smile into the dark. Reborn, not broken. Texas sun rises same, but I'm the storm now.